Hello, this is Cho of the Shiny Colors Discord, and welcome to another episode of the Shiny Review. Today we have 3 cards that we need to talk about, but keep in mind there are actually 2 other cards that you can farm for the time being. There is a support SSR for Chiyuki and SR for Kaho. Those are both available on one of our previous videos, which you can watch above. For now, we'll be talking about the new Produce SSR for Rinze, Support SR for Chiyuki, and Produce SR for Koito. Starting things off, we have Rinze. Rinze's latest SSR is a bit of an interesting choice of direction. Much like Amana 6, she feels like a greatest hits version of most Hokago cards, taking a little bit of everything and piling it all together. She supports, but not as well as her other counterparts. She attacks, but not as well as others. She raises attention, and this is actually comparable to some past SSRs like Chiyoka 1. It is pretty significant. Her biggest advantage is that she's one of the better Rinze choices for Dance Hokago, a team that has seen little improvement since the Summer Natsuha support last year or Jury 5's introduction. Her attention complements a card like Chiyoko 3, but they might need something a little extra to kickstart their team. She's a very solid card, but it might be best to wait and see how she pans out first. Her roles are buffer, attacker, center, as well as attention up, and I moderately recommend pulling for Rinze, maybe even on the lower end. She is a permanent card, and keep in mind that we do have a double rates banner coming up later this month, so that's definitely something you'll want to use your gems on instead of this, since she'll also be available on that banner. But of course, if you're a Rinze P, go for it. Rinze's initial skill is a Dance 3.5 appeal that raises your dance by 25% for 3 turns, and your attention by 155% for 3 turns. This links into a Dance 3.0 appeal. At max, she unlocks a Vocal 5.0 appeal that raises your Vocal stat by 50% for 3 turns, and your attention by 155% for 3 turns, and links into the same Vocal 3.0 appeal. Rinze does have a fairly notable 0-star passive, a Vocal 30% up if your mental is 74% or lower. It has a 50% chance to activate twice. As for the unlockable passives, at 1 star she gains a Vocal Dance 25% up and Attention 25% up. It requires the turn count to be 4 or later, and it has a 20% chance to activate 3 times. This also unlocks a Dance plus 50 uncap. Her 2-star passive is a Vocal Dance 45% up and Attention 40% up that requires an active Attention up buff. This has a 20% chance to activate 3 times. Her 3-star uncap is a Vocal Dance plus 100, and her 4-star uncap is a Vocal plus 150. Her memory appeal, when maxed out, is a Vocal 100% up for 2 turns, and links into a Vocal 3.0 appeal. For the support recommendations, this is going to look incredibly similar to Jury 5's recommendations, though of course we substitute Rinze cards with Jury's limited SSR. Focus on whichever stat is your fancy, but remember that she isn't a true vocal support until 4 stars. Same deal with the alternatives. Some small substitutions, but everything is more or less the same as what we talked about with Jury. Hiyori's limited SSR is a good option if you want to specifically focus on both vocal and dance, so pick and choose carefully. For the team recommendations, this is a more modified version of Dance Hokago. Everything here makes about as much sense as you'd expect. Choko 3 is your center, Jury 5 on the left, Rinze possibly as your leader, and then you feature Kaho and Natsuha. You'll ideally want Rinze or Kaho to appeal early, giving a bit more room for Chiyoko 3 to deal her best damage. Now, as a side note, a vocal dance split Hokago team is slowly growing, as Kaho and Choko are missing modern enough vocal dance cards. They do have access, of course, to Choko 1 and Kaho 2, but those are pretty outdated for the most part with Great Best teams, aside from Choko 1's ability to make other cards better. Natsuha 2 could also stand to be replaced, so maybe we are a little further away than we realize. But they may be trying to push the team more towards a dual stat build rather than single stat, which could be interesting to see if they continue the trend. On to the scores. Rinze earns an A- as a center. By all accounts, this is the same memory appeal as Jury 5, just vocal. Hokago have plenty better options for vocal specifically, but assuming you lack most of the limited Hokago cards, Rinze 6 is a reasonable choice. As a unit, also A-. I think the main thing that really holds Rinze back specifically from being a great unit is her lack of commitment to any particular stat. The split stat units always have had this issue, and Rinze is no exception, as the only thing not truly shortchanged here is her attention boosting capabilities. In a lot of ways, she's a direct upgrade to Jury 5 on that alone, which is interesting to see when you consider how far apart those two are, which is not as much as you think. The damage is fair, the buffing is okay, and she's overall a solid card with a lot of promise. Next we have our SR, Chiyuki. Our latest Chiyuki SR is a little on the underwhelming side, if I would be so blunt. Photoshoot Mastery helps secure her as a niche SR for the most part, and her actual passives are okay at best. She comes with a very weak healing appeal as well, and ultimately doesn't do a whole lot for dance teams unless you've been struggling to find your start. Her support skills are Idol's Bond, Promise Recovery, and Rest Boost, and her unique support skill is Photo Mastery Dance, reaching +9 at level 65. Her support appeal does scale, however, starting at a Dance 2.0 at level 1, 2.1 at level 50, and 2.5 at level 70. Her TFD idea is Dance, and her Insight token for Grad is Vocal. Chiyuki's 1-star passive is a Dance 15% up that requires you to be in the dance position. This has a 30% chance to activate once. Her 2-star passive is a Dance 30% up that requires an active dance buff, and this has a 30% chance to activate. Her 2-star passive is a Dance 30% up that requires an active dance buff, and has a 30% chance to activate once. Her 3-star uncap is a Dance +50, and her 4-star appeal is a Dance 2.5 that recovers your health by 5%. Her event passive is a Dance 10% up that requires Chiyuki on your team, and this has a 30% chance to activate twice. Chiyuki earns a B. Comparing her to previous recent SRs, Chiyuki sacrificed one of her support skills for a 5% heal on her appeal, which is not very good. Remember that your default heal is also 5%, so while putting a 2.5 on top of it is appreciated, you'll most likely find much better things to grab than this. The passives are okay for a gacha SR, and she helps focus on more photoshoot-focused teams, which is neat to see. I don't necessarily recommend pulling specifically for this Chiyuki unless you're a fan of her. She'll probably come around eventually, since she is an SR. Lastly, we have this event's card, Koito. It's kinda crazy that we're only now getting our first produced SR for Koito. As you can probably expect, Koito's SR is a simplified version of her first SSR, just as a visual dance unit. This means that she can buff either your visual or dance stat until you take damage somehow, so make sure to build around this with reaction buffs to help evade damage, or tension down to prevent attacks altogether. There's not really a whole lot else to say about this Koito. Her first SR is pretty underwhelming, with pretty terrible passives and decent-ish appeals among other event SRs. She's certainly not a head-turner of a card, but if you've missed out on either of her SSRs, this is a good unit to use if you haven't progressed far enough with her Idol Road variation. Her main role is as a buffer, and I recommend farming for Koito. Koito's initial skill is a visual 1.5 appeal that raises your visual by 15% until you're damaged, and links into a visual 2.0. At max, she unlocks a Dance 2.5 appeal that raises your dance by 30% until you're damaged, and links into a Dance 2.0. Her 1-star passive is a visual 12% up that requires your mental to be 75% or higher. It has a 30% chance to activate once. Her 2-star passive is a Dance 24% up that requires a turn count of 4 or earlier. This also has a 30% chance to activate once. Her 3-star uncap is a Dance +50, and her memory appeal once maxed is a Dance 1.5 appeal that links into a vocal dance visual 20% buff until you're damaged. For the support recommendations, Nocchill in general lacks a lot of dance and visual support, so find your balance as you can. The Madoka and Toru cards are basically as best as you're going to get. Illumination Star supports can assist plenty, and the recent limited Fuyuko plays into more of an active buff style, which will be much easier to work with once they have access to a card that lets them stack dance a lot easier, so maybe more of a card to consider for the future than for now. The alternatives attempt to use what else Nocchill has left while continuing on the idea of utilizing Stray Light supports, which feels to be the common choice for Nocchill teams currently. You may find more value out of visual Fuyuko over dance until they do decide to buff dance Nocchill a little bit. Koito as a center earns a D+. Nah. Maybe if it was at least a 2.5 base, then maybe you could make an argument, otherwise it's pretty terrible. As a unit, she gets a B-. It's a little weird to give Koito as a recommendation solely because she doesn't really do a whole lot. The buffing is nice, but it's nowhere near enough to really make a huge difference unless you never get hit. You also won't find yourself using her on a visual team if you have access to Koito too, so it really only limits her to one real team that doesn't have any support at all. It is a cute outfit for Koito, so think of it more as an unlockable costume with an easy requirement than a card you might find yourself using in the future outside of True Ends. And that's going to do it for the video today. Thank you so much, as always, for watching. If you like what you saw, make sure to like the video, and if you have any feedback for us, please let us know in the comments, and subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. Next time we'll be talking about the very exciting April banner, which is a 2x rate featuring P-SSR6 Mono and a new support SSR for Kaho. They're both limited, and I look forward to talking about them, as we got a preview for Mono's abilities, and she looks crazy strong. Till next time, I've been Cho, thanks for watching, have a wonderful rest of your day.